Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the state of the game for August 2024. So I feel like doing these types of videos every 6 months is a pretty good thing to do because it kind of lets me reflect on all the changes that have occurred within the last 6 months or so. And at this point in time, Pad is definitely in a different state compared to what it was 6 months ago because most notably there is a significant rise of collaborations. So the biggest introduction is collaboration-specific badges. And these badges give cards from that respective event 15% health, 15% recovery, and 50% attack bonus. This is a huge power creep step by comparison to our regular solo mode badges because for the most part, you're almost always going to be using the flat 15% health. But the collab badge adds 15% more RCV and 50% attack on top of it. So it's vastly superior. But of course, because it's only utilized for collaboration-specific cards, it kind of means that you need to build a team from that respective collab. Hence why collabs have become some of the most important things to roll in overall. Furthermore, we do have now these 10-to-1 trades to get those badge cards, like Rimuru and Veldora is the card you could trade for in the Slime collab. Basically, chuck in 10 collab cards, spits out him, you have the collab badge, and also a useful card as well. But this is kind of becoming the trend where you need to pick up these collab badges if you roll in this event. So it's kind of like encouraging you to roll quite heavily, because usually if it's 10-to-1 trade, you need to have 10 fodder. And I don't want to give up my only copy of something, so you're probably going to have to roll a modest amount before you can make this 10-to-1 trade. And it has definitely shifted and changed where at least I personally am going to be spending my magic stones moving forward. With the slime collab, I probably got a little too excited and pulled the trigger a bit too early, and I rolled maybe 15 plus times from the rare machine, and I didn't get very much overall. Maybe because the event was a more top heavy skewed, but I didn't get enough stuff to really make it worthwhile, and I kind of regret it because when I think about it, when the next collaboration comes around, I may not have enough stones to roll super deep into it, because at this point in time, I feel like the best approach to rolling in Pad now is to hoard and stock up as many magic stones as possible, which often means skipping events, and then going hard in one collab that you think is something that you like, either as the franchise or the cards are actually just genetically strong. So save, hoard, roll hard in that one event. Hopefully roll enough things that you can build together a competent team from that respective event, and then utilize that badge. Good example is my mom, who tends to hoard stuff because she only rolls when I tell her to roll. So she managed to roll quite a bit in slime, and she can build at least a Nava team and a Rimuru Tempest team, and she has the badge. She can basically build the entire team of collab cards. Her ability to clear content went up significantly. And this can be a good thing in a sense, because if you're someone who's say plays quite casually, doesn't roll much, potentially just logs in, or even coming back after a long break, you are potentially able to clear some of the technical dungeons for 85 stones. There's several of them you can do, and use those to kind of fund a big rolling spree in a collaboration. And to a certain extent, you kind of can catch back up into the meta in that sense. It's kind of almost reminiscent of the Yu-Gi-Oh collab for those who've been playing for a long time. When it first came out, you could roll basically an entire team and actually clear endgame content from the collab itself. And this has kind of come back full circle, but exacerbated by the fact that we have this collaboration badge. And then taking all this into consideration, I feel that Godfests have significantly lower value compared to before, mostly because Godfest exclusives are just simply not used much by comparison to before. I'm going to just pull up some images here on the screen of two different Japanese websites that have tier lists for the best leaders in the game, and I circled the Godfest exclusives. So we have Game 8 and we have Game With. You can make arguments that tier lists are not accurate, but I feel like it's still portraying a certain trend here of, well, there's only Guten on Game With and at the very bottom of their tier list for the best leaders, and then Game 8 has Aggregate and Guten also at the bottom. Point of the matter is, every single other card there is a collaboration. Not a seasonal, but a collaboration card. Well, actually, maybe there's a seasonal. Is that a Bride card? Maybe it is. But basically the point is, it's all collaborations. So we are definitely in an era of puzzles and collaborations, not dragons, collaborations. So collabs are really where it's at. Like for myself, I'm really not going to roll in like any Godfest anymore when I think about it, because I used to like seasonal Super Godfest because it was nice to be able to pick up those seasonal cards, but those seasonal cards, while some of them are strong, are just sometimes not going to be featured, or just not enough value compared to like the collaboration cards that are currently available. So the game has definitely shifted and changed in that regards, and I need to adjust my rolling tendencies as well. Because even though, like from the last video when I did the state of the game, I talked about how we get so many magic stones, our magic stone income rate is still quite high. We have monthly quests, we have so many events, like there is lots of magic stones, but when events cost like 10 magic stones per roll, and you have to roll like 20, 30, 40 times to really get enough to build a competent team to take advantage of the badge to push yourself ahead in power creep, it's hard to save up that and just keep rolling in every single event. So I'm going to be hoarding and saving for a little bit longer, hopefully. Another point I want to address is faster power creep. And it only feels like the power creep is going very quickly simply because we have more events. This is a good thing in all honesty. Like more events means more content, more things to do. So it's a positive thing overall, but at the same time, in order to like, keep the game moving forward, so to speak, there has to be power creep to a certain extent. And while the power creep sometimes jumps by small amounts, if there are just so many events, it ends up becoming quite a significant jump overall. So power creep is definitely racing its way forward. Every collaboration that comes out seems to be a little bit better almost than the last one to a certain extent. And it's just a way, I think, because Gung-Ho is a company that needs to make money, and they've probably realized that collaborations are where they make large amounts of money when you need to roll multiple times, like tons and tons of times to get duplicates of the top 1% rarity card, and you need duplicates to form a good team. So it's kind of the trend where we're currently at overall. And then one thing that I want you to like take a look at is like look at the raw stats of these newer collaboration cards from like Slime or Gung-Ho Alternate Journey. Their stats are so much higher compared to other stuff, and that's just another layer of power creep, because it's subtly implying that like with even more punishing super gravities, if you have 10,000 base attack, you might be able to keep up a little bit better, or you have like 10,000 plus base HP. Kohaku, for instance, one of the best clerics possible in the game, is like 15,000 plus HP and 2,200 odd RCV. It's a little outrageous overall, and it's just kind of like the stat power creep overall. And then cooldowns are also kind of getting lower and lower. We're starting to see cards having extremely low cooldowns for abilities that were kind of long beforehand. Like right now, to a certain extent, a cleric on a 5-turn cooldown is kind of almost like the baseline nowadays. There's a couple at 4 turns, but majority of them nowadays that are good, quote unquote, are on 5 turns. 6 turns, 7 turns is just getting a bit too long because dungeons have become so overloaded with mechanics overall. Because the game is no longer a casual friendly game. You can't pick up and play at least newer content. You might be able to pick up and play like extremely old stuff from like not 10 years ago, like multiple years ago, but newer stuff released within even just the last year or even 2 potentially, you can't really just go in blind and build a team. You have to spend a prolonged period of time building your team and then realizing that you forgot a certain mechanic that gets you killed outright, because the only way to overcome that mechanic is through direct active skill countering. And that is a bad design overall, because dungeons are now just absolutely riddled with mechanics. Like going back to my mom's example who rolled in Slime, it took me like at least 20 plus minutes to build one team for her, even though I know what I'm doing. It's a relatively generic team that should be able to clear most stuff, but it obviously will get stonewalled by like certain dungeons where it's like, say, back-to-back Awoken Bind clears, and there's no hope for that if you brought just one cleric. But the point is, it's not a game you can pick up and play anymore. It takes so long to build a team, and the problem is, because dungeons are so overloaded with mechanics, you have to have specific things to counter them, and if you forget one of those specific things, your run can be just over like that. And that's frustrating because dungeons are just far too long. Like, dungeons can take 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes potentially, and that's a long period of time. And it does not feel fun when you get towards the end and get executed by something that you just didn't have any idea was actually going to occur. Great example for myself was last month's level 15. I got close to the end, and I have no idea how much health anything has because it's still a decade after release. We don't know how much health things have, but I managed to match enough just to push it into the range where it would execute me one shot. 20 plus minutes down the drain simply because I did not know how much health something has. Like, it's a little outrageous. Then I tried it again. I minimized how much I matched, and I was able to just avoid getting executed. Go to the next floor, same problem again. So another 20, 25 minutes of time wasted. And it just didn't feel good. It wasn't like I did a bad job matching. Technically, I matched the whole board. So in theory, I was matching well in that sense. But because of no dungeon information, a lack of community resources, we are getting killed by just kind of like, aha, I got you execution mechanics. And that doesn't feel particularly enjoyable. By comparison, I found like the monthly quest level 8 and 9 are some of the actual most enjoyable parts of PAD, because it's truly reminiscent of the older PAD that we kind of possibly started playing 10 odd years ago, where it wasn't just one shot or be one shotted or have about 10 different mechanics on every different single floor and have to have specific active skills. You're given a team that can actually clear the dungeon, and you still have to take multiple turns on a given floor, but you don't get outright one-shotted. So it was a much nicer thing overall, because I'm not a huge fan of current endgame content because it doesn't feel super fun. It just feels like, did I roll the right cards? Did I bring the right stuff? Ooh, I didn't bring that. I'm dead again. It's just kind of the way it is, and I don't really know how Gung-Ho is going to dig themselves out of this hole, because every time we get new tools or new powerful options available, they will load us up with mechanics. And the newest mechanic, I think, in the last 6 months has been shields. And shields are something that gets put up on certain floors where it's like you have to hit a certain amount of damage to punch through, then the shield's gone, then you can deal with either the next shield or their actual health bar. They may oftentimes even put back their shields and restore it if too much time has elapsed. At least we actually have matching ways to deal with it. We can make a column of hearts for a follow-up attack. We can make a 3x3 box for a super follow-up attack. At least those gives an option for dealing with these shields, because my biggest fear was that Gung-Ho is going to release dungeons where if you don't have the shield breaking active skills, which are just starting to come out on the newest cards, you're going to be out of luck because you don't do enough damage to kill something, because it could have hundreds of billions of health, and if you don't break the shield by a certain time, you're just dead. So those types of active skills from like slimes such as Nava, for instance, are unbelievably strong, because right now shields are kind of the big deal. But at least we do have a way to match our way around it. I'm kind of going to go back and say like how damage absorption is one of the worst, or possibly the worst mechanic they've ever introduced, because it's impossible to deal with without an active skill, whereas damage void can be overcome by matching a 3x3 box and you have the right awakening. Any mechanic that I can solve by matching is vastly superior to any mechanic that needs a specific active skill to counter, because one of the best parts of PAD is honestly just matching the orbs and puzzling and putting them in the right positions. So it'd be nice if we can kind of get back towards that a bit more, because right now I feel that the vast majority of leaders feel nearly identical to play. It's just slightly different colors. Everything is a system, and this is good initially because we're like, wow, we have orb generation, we can guarantee leader skill activation. But now it has become expected that unless you can activate your leader skill, you're going to die. Like, there's no way around it. So that means you're forced to always play system-style teams where you have cards on 2 or 3 turn cooldowns that make the orbs necessary to fulfill your leader skills activation. But the problem is, if we think about, like, say, like, Pastel just makes a bunch of red, but, like, Excalibur makes red, yellow, hearts. Guten makes dark and hearts. Like, most of these cards are making 4 or 3 elemental boards, and we're just solving the same 3 or 4 elemental board every single time. It honestly feels like there's not much diversity in play styles anymore. The last time I played something that was kind of felt significantly more unique and interesting was Toy Dragons, the Godfest exclusive ones, where they make a 7x6 board. They just want to match as many red, blue, green combos as possible. It was a fun playstyle because it felt distinctly different compared to all the other stuff now. Right now, I play Guten, and then I switch to, like, Excalibur. It almost feels identical. I'm just basically matching the same stuff, just in different colors. And most leaders are kind of like that. Nava and Milim, they just make 3 elemental boards of dark, hearts, and fire. And you're just solving that. Like, that's all there is. And it just feels a bit repetitive. There's not that freshness of before where it felt like you had different play styles, because I think system teams have definitely cut down on the ability to, like, have a bit more diverse leaders in a way, because you're always matching like 4 elemental boards, and because you need to have system cards to guarantee activation because you die otherwise, you have less types of active skills you can bring in the dungeon. So with more mechanic overload. It becomes harder and harder to counter, but you can't play without those system cards because you won't be able to activate your leader skill, and then you're guaranteed to die instantly. So again, it's kind of like going back to like the current fixed team dungeons we have right now of level 8 and 9. There's no system card available. Like the Metatron team, you have a Heart Maker and a Heart Breaker on a 5-turn cooldown, each of them. You have to be strategic when you actually utilize these active skills. It was nice before when we actually used active skills strategically to help us burst things down, because now you can, like, say, like Guten, match 2 dart combos. If there's no super gravity, everything damage caps easily, and it's just like everything's just like a little out of control almost, so to speak. And then I guess finally the last point I want to address is that the monster exchanging system has lost some of its value, hence why I'm not as inclined to roll in Godfest, because beforehand I would roll in Godfest or seasonal Godfest, and then I would get hopefully those seasonal cards and just a bunch of Godfest fodder, and then convert those Godfest or the excessive Godfest exclusives into something useful from an event. At this point in time, we don't have as great of a time monster exchanging. The vast majority of chase cards are either background music, orb skin cards, things you can't trade for, or they're mid-rarity stuff which has no monster exchange option either. If you take, like, it's just the way it is, and it's going to be the way it is, I think, moving forward for a long time. It's going to be unusual, I feel, if we start seeing, at least with newer events, top tier stuff being easily acquirable. Like the Dengeki collab, which is about to arrive momentarily, you could exchange for Shayna, and she is a great leader, so like I have her because I traded for her. Like, it's not going to be a thing, I feel like, moving forward with newer collabs where it's like, oh, you want the good stuff, you have to roll heavily, hence why I've changed my rolling approach. And if that being said, I feel like that's kind of like the state of the game currently. Like, in summary, we do have so many Magic Stones coming in. We have lots of events. There's just things going on all the time, which is a good indication of the server doing well. Because, like I said, Gung Ho is not doing this because they're nice people. They're doing it to make money. And they would only keep the game running if they're profitable. So the fact that we're getting more events, like, I feel like we're getting significantly more events much quicker compared to beforehand even. And more events means they have to spend money, and then in turn they're probably making money. But that's a healthy indication that the game is doing well. So I think overall, the game is probably doing well overall. It's just the meta and how we approach it has shifted overall. So with that being said, let me know what you, ladies and gentlemen, think about the current state of the game in the comment section down below. Do you think any particular aspect is more or less enjoyable compared to beforehand? And what things you think are going well? But regardless of all that, hopefully all you lovely ladies and gentlemen have a truly fantastic day. I wish you best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.